Got major breaking news coming out of New York. Multiple people shot in New York subway attack involving explosions. Apparently, a man, some describe him as 5'5", wearing some kind of worker vest, dropped a smoke bomb of sorts before opening fire on several people. 13 people have been transported to local hospitals after the Tuesday morning attack. We have new information coming in on all of this. I want to read you this story, this breaking information. Keep in mind the information you're about to hear. It's graphic. I'm not going to show any graphic images or anything like that, but this is major news. Multiple people were shot during rush hour Tuesday morning. Several undetonated devices were discovered. The incident broke out around 8:30 a.m. at the 36th Street Center for the DNR lines in Sunset Park. The suspect is still at large as of 10:05 a.m. Eastern, so it's been a couple hours since then. There may be some developments. According to officials, 13 people have been transported to area hospitals after the shooting. Early reports said only 5 had been injured during the attack. 2 of the 5 shooting victims were said to have been seriously wounded. Police said a man, possibly wearing a gas mask and orange construction vest, fled the scene to an unknown location. Explosions were heard at the subway station, while investigators said they were not sure what type of device was detonated. Early reports said it may have been a smoke bomb. We're getting more information here now from the Daily Mail. They say a gunman wearing a gas mask and orange construction vest is on the run in Brooklyn, after shooting at least 8 people on a packed subway train in Sunset Park during rush hour. Shortly before 8:30 a.m., the gunman, described by witnesses as a 5'5" black man weighing 170 pounds, wearing an orange construction vest and gas mask, is believed to have let off a smoke grenade on the northbound N train as it moved towards 36th Street in Brooklyn. Witnesses from the train car say they thought fireworks were being let off before they realized someone was in fact shooting at passengers in one end of the car. 8 people were shot, including one who is now in serious condition, but a fire department source said 13 in total were injured. 4 suffered smoke inhalation, and the 13th injured is a pregnant woman. The terrified passengers were then trapped on the moving train until 36th Street. Video shows them spilling out onto the platform as soon as the doors opened, coughing as smoke billowed out of the subway car. Some passengers carried wounded victims off the train and laid them on the platform. Now, I have questions about this. There's a video going around. It doesn't show a whole lot. It shows the train come to a stop, the doors open, and people rush off the train. The person filming stays to keep filming. What about the threat resulted in people feeling comfortable staying put where they are, especially on a train moving through the subways? I would imagine that if I were on a train and someone opened fire, I'd pull the emergency stop and get off that train, or at the very least, use the doors between carts to get away from that train where shots are going off. I'm wondering if the person who was shooting was targeting specific individuals. Why wear a gas mask? So no one can see what you look like. Why let off the smoke bomb? So no one can tell who actually did it. Why stop shooting at a certain point? This could have been a targeted attack. It's all speculation. I don't know. What I can say is that crime is getting really, really bad in New York. I don't know why something like this would happen. I mean, it's horrifying, but the reality is sometimes bad people do bad things. I'm not sure there's anything you could really do to prevent this stuff. And that's something that many people need to recognize, that while this person needs to be brought to justice to prevent them from doing something like this again, how do you prevent someone from taking this kind of action? Guns are already, for the most part, illegal in New York City. That means this person illegally brought that weapon in. There is no circumstance in which you could have prevented this person who wanted to get a weapon from getting that weapon. Making the weapon illegal did not change anything. And I don't know what's going on as far as motive. What we know right now is just people were seen fleeing in New York. This the 36th Street subway station, as you can see in this image, is in Brooklyn near Sunset Park. One witness told the New York Post the gunman, a 5'5" black man weighing 170 pounds, fired too many rounds to count. It's unclear what type of weapon he used. I thought he was an MTA worker at first because I didn't pay too much attention, you know? You've got the orange on, the witness said. Yav Montano told CNN that he was on the northbound N train between 59th Street in Brooklyn and 36th Street when a smoke bomb went off inside the carriage. It was crazy. I take the N train every morning to get to where I need to work. from 59th Street to 36th Street. The N train is express. It's where all the dramatics happened. I'm in the third part of the express N train. The smoke grenade went off 2 minutes before we got to 36th Street platform. The train was inching towards. It seemed like it was planned. Now, hold on, man. I got some questions. You mean for 2 whole minutes? Or the guy starts shooting. How long does that shooting take? But for 2 whole minutes, this is occurring. Yo, why did the shooter stop? What were his targets? I think these are important questions. The smoke bomb and what I thought was fireworks, but I'm hearing it was gunshots. I have no words for what I could see. I was in the car. I was in the front end of the third car. Everything happened at the back end. People started migrating to the front of the car. I don't know if people know this. It's one of those old things where they locked the door to stop people traveling between trains. There were people in the other car who saw what was happening, and they tried to open it but couldn't. There was blood on the floor, a lot of blood trailing on the floor. At the time, I didn't think it was a shooting. It sounded like fireworks, people trampling over each other, trying to get over each other. Thankfully, the train moved to the next stop and everyone filed off the train. NYPD units are now scouring the city's empty subway tunnels looking for the gunman, who is feared to have jumped onto the tracks at 36th Street and fled. An Amber Alert has been issued across New York City. Here we can see many police responding to the area. Wow, man. So as of right now, it seems the perpetrator is still at large. Samil Toseglu, who runs a store opposite the station, told how his terrified 17-year-old daughter was on the train on her way to school when it was attacked. My daughter was going to school and was on the same train when it happened. She said there was smoke and she was told to get into the other train. She's now safe and came to my office before I sent her home. She is okay, but a little surprised. I didn't think it was that serious, but she told me people were yelling that it was a man with a gun and maybe a bomb. An FDNY spokesman, fire department, told the Daily Mail originally the call came in as smoke in the subway station. Upon arrival, officers found multiple people shot and undetonated devices. 13 people are injured. I have a lot of questions about this. Important ones. The door was locked between train cars. This does sound planned. People said they thought it was an MTA worker. Could it have been an MTA worker who locked the train car before committing this egregious act? There's fog of war and then there's fog of chaos. There was already other reports. You know, we're talking about this with several people here. I'm over at the Daily Wire HQ and there's some people hanging out. And they were showing images of suspects that looked Asian. I don't think we know for sure. Could it have been this 5'5" black man? Perhaps. But I am not entirely convinced. What I can say is it's a shocking and sad story. I hope everybody is okay. I hope everything is fine. I hope they catch this guy. But my friends, the people of New York, they know how bad things are getting. So we'll have more information on this probably later tonight, which we'll bring up on Timcast IRL. So make sure you can check that out. That's about the best I can give you. Please be safe out there, everybody. Pay attention to your surroundings. Maybe stay away from these areas. Let the police do their job. And I got to tell you right now, for all the defund the police crowd, who would deal with something like this? I know. You're going to be saying, Tim, you talk about abolishing the police too, and you criticize New York. Yes, but it's not because I think the police as an institution shouldn't exist. It's because I think the police were targeting regular people and they weren't doing their jobs, especially during the rioting. But I do absolutely believe that policing is good. I think we do need to clean up the system a little bit. And I think for the people in these big cities who want to abolish the police, by all means, then you can ask yourself the question, how many social workers will it take to deal with a situation like this? Ultimately, I don't think there's any real solution. An armed population, I don't think, would solve this problem. I really mean it. I'm all in favor of 2A. I own a bunch of guns myself. But you got a guy in a train, a jam-packed, situation. People are shoulder to shoulder. Smoke bomb goes off. No one knows what's happening. Ain't no good guy with a gun going to be stopping something like this. Perhaps it would be a deterrent. Perhaps someone could have eventually stopped him, but would have resulted in more people getting hurt. I honestly don't know. I don't know if there is a real way to solve for things like this. And that just leads me to say, maybe when it comes to egregious acts of violence, we have to recognize that bad people sometimes do bad things. Life isn't going to be easy and safe. Sometimes it will be dangerous. The people of New York seem to understand what's going on. Take a look at this story from the Daily Mail as we move on. Why now is the time to quit the rotten Big Apple. 59% of New Yorkers say their lives would be better if they left the city. And their number one complaint is no surprise. And how much you want to bet? Crime. A startling 59% of New Yorkers. now say they would be better off leaving the city on the back of soaring crime rates and the high cost of living, according to a new poll. Hey, after what we're seeing right now today with this horrifying story, I hope everybody is okay. I know there are injured. I hope they're going to be all right. I'm not surprised people don't want to be here. Now, I can't blame anybody for except this crazed gunman. That's a reality. You can't blame guns. You can't blame Biden. You can't blame the police. Bad people do bad things. Life is not going to be a fairy tale. Bad things can happen to good people. But I got to tell you, man, with that being recognized, there are too many people in this city who vote for bad politicians, who appoint bad cops. Our good friend Luke Rutkowski, you guys know him, over at We Are Change. He interviewed a guy on the subway in New York when I believe it was a guy with a knife started stabbing people. And he started fighting this guy, and the cops did not intervene. I don't want to get involved. They waited until this hero stopped a deranged knifeman who was stabbing people. And the police were like, we have no obligation to intervene to protect you. So why should we intervene to get the back of cops when they're shutting down our stores, when they're arresting salon owners? It's mostly in these big cities. But to all these people in these cities who complain about police and want to get rid of them, this is what happens when you do. Crime is skyrocketing. They say crime was the leading issue on voters' minds, with 41% of respondents saying public safety was the most pressing issue, while 19% cited inflation and the high cost of living in New York. The poll results come as figures show crime has risen 44% since the start of 2022, despite Mayor Eric Adams' promise of a crackdown. He's not cracking down. What are they doing? Anti-gun unit. Guns are already illegal, and they ain't stopped stuff like this. They're not stopping people from shooting each other. All they're doing is infringing on the rights of people who aren't who aren't hurting people to extreme degrees. What do you do? What do you do when someone is violent and intent on being violent? Banning the weapon doesn't stop it. That's what they do. They infringe on your rights. That's what they do. More than half of the respondents also took issue with the overall quality of life in New York, with 23% rating it poorly and 36% as only fair. About 32% said quality of life was good, and just 9% said it was excellent. While crime and cost of living make up 60% of the residents' top concerns, with homelessness coming in at 9% and housing at 8%. Other issues like healthcare, police reform, education, job creation, etc., etc. We understand. Look at this. Felony assaults are up 19.1%. Rape is up 15.8%. We've got shooting victims up 14.5%. We've got robbery up 47.2%. Overall crime, 44.13%. But hold on. Murders are down 8.6%. Now you may be saying, Tim, murders are down. That's good news, right? No, I'm sorry. It's only sort of good news. The reason murders go down is because of reporting capabilities, not because people are trying less. Felony assaults are up 19.1%, and felony assaults often become murders. If someone is a victim of a felony assault or a shooting victim, that could become a murder. But it seems first responders are doing their jobs. People are able to report this. So if we've got a 14.5% increase in shooting victims, do you think that means criminals are like, better shoot them in the non-vital organs or the legs? No. It means likely that first responders are doing their job better than before. I got a lot of issues with cops, with the police departments, with their corruption. But it mostly has to do with corrupt Democrats in big cities appointing cronies to be police and them just treating everyone like garbage. When the riots happened, I said, this is exactly why you need police. And who's going to complain when the cops go out to stop rioters, except the rioters and their friends? Regular people are going to say, stop the riots, what they should be doing. Cops didn't do it. I don't blame them because the cities demonized them. But then the cops started arresting people over COVID restrictions. And I said, these are the regular people who had your back. So no. As an institution, I understand the power and importance of police and the problems along with it. But I don't know how you solve for any of this. The police could not have prevented this. This guy had a plan. And it is a terrifying plan. And we're seeing just crime skyrocket. So, here we go. Daily Mail. Hundreds of New York City prosecutors are quitting over low pay and new laws that create reams of paperwork and long hours that leave assistant DAs burnt out. It's almost like the Democrats want criminals on the streets. Isn't that how it seems? You get stories like this. They then say, oh, look, only we can keep you safe. Vote for us. Maybe it's an opportunity for Republicans to win by coming out and saying, you Democrat voters, you, the Democrats, you have voted for this over and over again. It's about time you voted in different leadership. Otherwise, the crime will always just only get worse. It's not just New York. The U.S. Postal Service has suspended service in Santa Monica amid violence. This is an unusual but necessary step to protect our employees, said a USPS spokesperson. Wow. What's the saying? Whether rain, nor sleet, nor hail, nor whatever, the post office is always working. There's a blizzard, the post office is working, but this one, it's just too much. It's just too much for postal workers. The crime has skyrocketed too much. I don't know how y'all are living in cities right now. I understand. Growing up in Chicago, people think it's the apocalypse, and you're fine. I also know a lot of people who died from drug overdoses, and I know about the gang violence. I know people directly involved in it growing up. Why, at this point, you'd want to live in a city with a skyrocketing crime rate? 59% of New Yorkers know they should flee. Maybe they can't. But, your cost of living is so insanely high. Maybe it's your job. I get it, man. It's not easy. It is not easy to deal with. This is scary, what's been going on with crime. I know a lot of people would come to me and say, how did you live in Chicago? And I'm like, look, you live your life in Chicago. It is not like people are shooting each other every 10 minutes. There's just a lot of murders. I think it was like 800 or some odd out of a city of millions of people. So you'll hear about it, but you typically don't see it. I've seen and heard, one thing here or two with gunshots. People involved in violence. I've been shot at a couple times. So yeah, it happens. I was in South Korea several years ago, and I met a couple from South Africa, and they said, it's not as bad as people think in South Africa. And this woman's like, I've only been, I think, carjacked maybe 5 times. So it's not that bad. And I was like, what? 5 times? Yo, I've never been carjacked in Chicago, and Chicago's bad. I think it's relative. That people from an area of high crime think it's normal, and they're like, oh, it's only 5 carjackings. I remember a story about a guy in Chicago. Somebody walked up to his car, pointed a gun at his chest and said, get out. And the dude hit the gas. And so the dude just went pop, pop and killed him. Crime exists, man. Police won't stop all of it. They can stop very little of it, to be honest. But they can go after the people and prevent it from happening in the future. They say an armed society is a polite society, perhaps. A lot of this high crime is happening in areas where they overtly ban guns. Out here in Nashville, we were talking to John Rich the other day. He's like, not a whole lot of crime, violent crime, in a lot of these areas because people are armed. Everybody's got guns. You take a look at West Virginia, and what do you see? You see a lot of, you see a lot of nonviolent crime. You do see a decent amount of violent crime, but that's in like the cities. You come out to the countryside, and it's like, don't come near my property because we all got guns armed to the teeth. West Virginia doesn't have very big cities, but it's got a couple, and they have crime there because people are armed, and even if you're armed, there's no guarantee. But I think people should be armed. I don't know what would have happened if that gunman in the train, pulled out his gun and someone next to him was armed. Maybe they could have seen it happen right away and just stopped this before it happened. I oppose the death penalty. But I only oppose the death penalty in the sense that you've captured and subdued an individual. And the reason for it is I don't trust the state to execute innocent people. Or to not execute innocent people. I don't trust them to be right when they say this person is deserving of death. I certainly think there are people who are deserving of death. And it is sad. But this guy on this train, he could have been stopped before he shot all these people. And I'm sorry, if you feel you have the right to engage in violence that will take someone else's life, you've forfeited your own. You better pray someone doesn't stop you because they will end your life. I don't like the idea of killing. I think most people don't like the idea of killing. I think there is a handful of people who probably are okay with it, but most people are not. When it comes to these cops who shoot and kill people, they have panic attacks. They break down crying. They have PTSD. No sane, normal person wants to kill another person. You got to be crazy. Callous, cold, and evil. That's why I don't like the death penalty. But man, what we're seeing with Democrat policy across the board it's been terrifying. Crime has just been going up like crazy. And I think what we see in New York with this attack is remnants. It's a byproduct of the escalating crime, the emboldening of this behavior. People think they can get away with this stuff, and they are. Look, I pay attention to what's happening with the story. We'll keep up with it. We'll talk about it on IRL. What I can only say is we need to recognize that tragedies happen. We can't just panic, throw our arms in the air, and then try and pass more draconian laws. It won't change anything. You look back. People survived in the 1800s, the 1900s, and we had war and conflict. And we had guns rapidly advanced near the end of the 1800s, and people survived, and here we are today. We got to recognize the risks that come with life. We need to hold people to account when they violate our laws and hurt people. But to hold people to account who didn't do anything to be held to account for makes no sense. What I worry now with what happened in New York is you're going to see an attempt at draconian laws. They're going to say, oh, Biden was right about banning weapons. Taking away the rights of individuals who did nothing wrong makes no sense. It will not stop this. Stay safe out there, guys. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.